This is David Schwartz for TOS50.com, the other side of 50, and it's my honor to be with Mayor Ed Koch. Good morning, Mayor Koch.
Good morning.
So you've taken a pretty public stance on Israel. Why don't we go back to the congressional race that took place? You made an endorsement of Bob Turner and you campaigned for him against David Weprin. Can you give us some background on that?
I'm a Democrat, and I was involved in the campaign of President Obama, and he asked me personally to go to Florida in 2008 and to campaign in the Jewish communities on his behalf, and I did, and he thought I did a pretty good job, and he got 78% of the vote nationally. It wasn't attributable to me. It was that Jews decided to do what they have always done, which is to support the Democratic candidate, and we're particularly pleased that for the first time the Democratic candidate for president was an African American. I am also a journalist, aside from being a partner in this law firm doing other media activities. And I write a commentary every week, and in the course of the period from the beginning of his administration until currently, I have written extensively on the president, and sometimes I've praised him and sometimes I've criticized him on a whole host of issues, primarily domestic and also the issue of Israel. And I came to the conclusion that he was hostile to Israel by a number of his actions and statements, and the hostility was basically demonstrated early on when he went to Cairo and made his speech seeking a change in relationships with the Islamic Muslim community, and I thought it was at the expense of Israel and the special relationship that the United States had. And then there was a particular situation involving what most Jews and others commenting who were not Jewish on the insulting behavior extended to Prime Minister Netanyahu at the White House, and other statements that the president made that were perceived, I believe, to be hostile to Israel. And I said so, and I said I wouldn't vote for him. I didn't expect to vote for a Republican because of their domestic agenda, which is not my agenda. I thought it would be helpful to say, don't take the Jewish vote for granted. And the way I thought that could be done came about when there was a special election here in New York for Congress, as a result of Anthony Weiner having resigned, and a special election for Congress in his district being called. And I thought the eyes of the whole nation would be on that race, particularly since it was a solid Democratic district, 3.5 to 1 Democratic registration, and one that had been sending a Democrat to Congress for 80 years. And I said so. And I said that defeat, if there was a defeat of the Democrat, would be a huge message, particularly since the district was about 30% Jewish, and they vote extensively, so probably their total vote was 40% of the district. And when I said these things and urged the district to do that, I got a call from Bob Turner. He'd like to come up and see me. That he thought that I would approve of him as a candidate, and fine, good. So I asked him to come up. He did. I said, actually, there should be two messages. The one that I want to send to the Democratic Party and to the President relates to Israel. The one that you should be sending, if you want me to support you, is a message to the Republican national leadership that you don't agree with them with respect to their position that Social Security and Medicare should be national.
Has Bob Turner lived up to that?
Absolutely. No, I want to make it very clear. I didn't ask him to change the position on anything. his position was he was against privatizing, before he met me, Social Security and Medicare, and also keeping them and Medicaid as entitlements, which is my position. He said he wants to make them solvent. That would mean changes within both Medicare and Social Security in terms of eligibility and with respect to how old you are and other benefits that might be looked at, such as inflation and its impact and so forth. And I agreed that his position is what my position was. He won the election, making those two commitments, one on Israel, which he had already had very been supportive of his whole professional life, so far as I know, and in the prior election where he was candidate for Congress, and also in opposition to the Republican leadership, but only on those issues that I just explained. He's kept his commitments to date, and he won the election with an 8% majority. That is a blowout in terms of politics.
Especially in that district.
Yeah, sure. And as a result of that, I met with the president at the president's request. And the president told me he was distressed with the feeling in the Jewish community, and it was clear to me that he wanted to change that, and had, before he met me on the same day that we met, when he was meeting with members of delegates from the UN at the New York Public Library, and he made a magnificent speech in support of Israel and recognized that it was surrounded by enemies, and my feeling was that he was trying to change the view of him in the Jewish community, and I told him I thought it was a magnificent speech.
And now you say you're going to support President Obama just based on that speech alone?
Not only on that speech, on the fact that he has, in addition, been all along, been very supportive of assisting the Israeli military. And when people say to me, well, why would you change so quickly? I say to them, firstly, there are some people who would like me to stretch it out and make it unpleasant for him. I don't think you do that to the President of the United States. I certainly don't. I decided that what he had done was a change and should be rewarded with my support.
So, in a nutshell, what do you think needs to happen in Israel? Where does American policy need to go from here?
Well, I believe that as a result of the most recent situation involving Iran, where Iran has been found as having engaged in a plan to assassinate the Saudi ambassador in Washington, to blow up the Washington Israeli embassy, and to destroy the two embassies in of Saudi Arabia and Israel in Argentina. I believe, and I've urged the White House and its people who I'm in touch with to announce that the policy of the United States will in the future be that any military attack on either Saudi Arabia or Israel itself would be deemed an attack upon the United States, so as to deter Iran from considering either a nuclear attack or a conventional military attack on either of those two countries, both of which are allies of the United States. I haven't heard back from them, but that's my position at the moment.
What do you think President Obama's position is going to be on this?
Well, there is a news article in today's Times saying that the United States government is looking for ways to punish Iran, and in fact, in the Times, it said one of the items that is not off the table, although I'm sure they're not going to engage in it, is a military strike now against Iran for having threatened to blow up a facility, in this case the Saudi Arabian embassy, for the purposes of killing the Saudi Arabian ambassador, which would be an act of war. I doubt that we're going to respond militarily, but they're thinking about that, says the New York Times. My belief is that if they did what I suggested, it would send a message, a mighty message.
One more question before we wrap up this segment. Is there a political backstory behind you and the Weprin family, David Weprin, in that race whatsoever? I know they go way back to when you were mayor.
It was very interesting.
There is some speculation about that.
Well, I doubt that there's much speculation about that. But I know exactly what you're talking about. David Weprin called me, and David Weprin, when I made the announcement that I was going to support Bob Turner, and he called and he said, I could be your message. I said, David, you can't be the message. The fact is that if you're elected, it's just another Democrat from a congressional district in Brooklyn, expected to support President Obama, who was elected. That's not a message. President Obama is not going to take note of that. He's going to say, ho hum. And then David apparently told the newspaper publisher, because he was unhappy with me, the local newspaper there, that he thought it related to the fact that his father hadn't supported me when I was running for mayor in 1977 and supported Merritt. You have to understand, I hardly knew his father. Right. If I met his father more than 2 times, it'd be more than I can recall. And I said, of course he should have supported Mario. He was a neighbor, a friend, a political associate. In fact, I came to know his 2 sons, the father's 2 sons, Mark, who became a member of my administration, and who I urged to run for Congress in that district. Now, he urged it. I wouldn't have done had he done what I suggested, he run, because I had this relationship with him. He was in my administration.
Would you have supported Mark Weprin?
I said so.
Really?
At the time. I said so publicly. And in fact, what is interesting is the Republican candidate is a young council member who I supported, Republicans very able. And I said that even though I had supported him and I liked him very much, that is a result of Mark being in my administration, being a Democrat, so forth, I would have supported Mark over him, although it would have been painful. But I didn't know that to David Weprin, who I also happen to have supported for city council for, I think, re-election, but I'm not a personal friend of his. So it had nothing to do with the Weprin family, and I think they understood that, and the local newspaper, I believe, withdrew its allegation in the paper.
All right, I'm glad you cleared that up. So we're just wrapping up the first segment of TOS50.com with Mayor Ed Koch. Thank you very much, Mayor.